I was talking to a friend of mine, and I think she said that a niece of hers is graduating, and they're actually going to, I think, drive on the field, get their diploma, and then have to drive off. So there's a couple of ways that I think people are doing things differently. But I definitely was really impressed with the thing that LeBron James was involved in. I think there was a Pakistani activist and a couple of others that had joined on that as well. So they'll be speaking as well as enlisting some of their people from their different aspects of their lives. So that at least they're trying to do that. So that was good to see. I want to bring in Bobby Banks as well, but tell us, Mr. Hacker, a little bit about that book. I know that book was a little bit not as recently as the other one that we've been talking about with the Donald and everything, but you did write a book about race relations, and like Seneca was talking about, his movie kind of touched on some of that. But where do you think we're going in the sense of that, and particularly with there being a third class? You touched them slightly earlier on immigration, and some people are looking at not just it being a black and white society, but it's a black, white, and brown society. So I was just wondering what some of your take on how we're doing in race relations and a little bit of your thoughts on that book that you wrote as well, because that was a very powerful book also.
Okay, thank you for going back to that book. In fact, the two books I wrote fit together. The first book, and I'm an author, so I have to say what the title is. The book, my most recent book, is called Downfall: Why Donald John Trump is Not Going to Get Reelected. My earlier book was called Two Nations, Black and White. Here's how they fit together. The Republican Party has decided to be a white party. 88% of Republican voters are of European or Caucasian origin. Most of the others are Cuban American. But the Democratic Party is much more a multi-racial party. Whites are a small minority of Democrats because black, brown, and what we used to call yellow, forgive me, Americans, Asian Americans, are now great deal part of the Democratic Party. Now, why are the Republicans so white a party? It's because white Republicans feel under siege. They feel that they're no longer respected. They feel the country doesn't belong to them.
Alternative investments in real estate are a lucrative way to generate income, yet
beg you, could you say that again, please? We have a bad connection.
No, I think somebody had some interference. That might have been Kimberly. So just go ahead with what you were saying, and you might have to put Kimberly on mute for a minute there.
Interesting survey was among white Democrats and white Republicans. What did white Republicans say? They said, we're being discriminated against, we white Republicans, even more than black and brown people are. We're the people who suffer discrimination most. White Democrats don't feel that way. Life is going okay. So what the Republican Party is appealing to, with its immigration stance, its stance on civil rights, what the Republican Party is doing is appealing to white people on the basis of their being white. Well, I'm sorry, there are not enough of them, because at least half of whites, almost half, are Democrats. And so there aren't enough of those aggrieved white Republicans to reelect Donald Trump.
Wow. I definitely hope that that's the case and everything. I do want to bring in Bobby as well. Bobby Banks, you've heard a little bit of the conversation going on and everything, and I just want folks to know a little bit about you and your background and what you do and everything, because like I said, our conversation covers a little bit of everything. Right now we've been talking about politics, but we'll shift us a little bit to have a little bit about your conversation and what you've been involved in just in general, and some of what if you have comments about some of what you've heard as well. But I just want to bring in Dr. Bobby Banks to hear what she's been listening to, because you're a consultant, you're a speaker, you've done all kinds of amazing things in your career. So just wanted to give a chance to share a little bit about what you do in terms of leadership, research, and all of that. So if you would, just kind of like share a little bit about what Pilar Consulting is all about.
Sure. Thanks, Mark. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be on your show and to talk a little bit about my work. I am the founder and CEO of Pilar Consulting. It's based here in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, or the Raleigh-Durham area for those who aren't familiar with both cities, but we are based in Durham. We are a program evaluation research consulting firm primarily focused on issues that are rooted in equity, some of the very underlying issues that factor into everything that people have talked about today. My work and my research has spanned the Americas, Africa, Europe. I'm primarily interested in hearing community narratives and how we can use that to inform policy and programs. So mixed method approaches in which we are hearing voices, in which we are analyzing data, and we are moving forward on that information to make sure that we are developing policy and programs that are impactful and meaningful. I've been doing this work for the past 15 years. I've been leading Pillar Consulting for the last 6 years. And many people around here also know me for my speaking. Recently had a TED Talk on confidence and a few other talks focused on equity, most recently Shifting Culture or Curtains and The Situation Room. So my purpose and my passion is really bringing to light some of the inequities that feed into, drive some of the very health issues that we see today, including COVID-19, and have an excellent team that helps me lead this work and also Envision Empowerment Experience, some half-day leadership intensives based here in Durham, but we have expanded that brand to Essence Music Festival weekend, corporate entities like Eastman Chemical Company, and nonprofits including the Southeastern Association for Community Action Agencies. So we are quite busy, but we are quite dedicated to the work that we do, not only publications, which are very important to see and research things of that sort, but also engaging with and making sure that communities are in the driver's seat with the work that we're doing.
And I'd love to hear all of you, but I'll start with you, Bobby. You actually brought it up, and I'm sure that Andrew's got some thoughts on it, as does Kim, and I may even think that Mark Monteman, I have not forgotten in the conversation and everything, might have some thoughts on it. But we've heard a lot of talk about the inequities that are existing in the COVID fight. We've heard a lot of figures about, and you just referenced it yourself, that a lot of the people that are being impacted are in the African-American community and some of the other minority communities. We know that we are very heavy in the health field and some of the essential worker fields and everything. So, and also just the way of it being treated, even some of the ways that leadership is talking about it. Because I've had some friends that are thought about the fact that once it looked like it was hitting our community more than other communities, certain people might have decided they wanted to open up things even faster because it wasn't necessarily in their mind hitting their communities as strong. That might be a little strong in terms of the thought pattern, but I have heard people express that thought, that they feel that once it hits the African-American community very heavily, particularly in cities like New York and stuff like that, that certain leadership people were like, it's hitting them and not necessarily hitting us, even though we are seeing it hit the White House and other places. But I just wondered what your thoughts are about that equity piece, because equity in the health industry is very important.
Sure. So I'm trained as an epidemiologist and decided to get my PhD in health behavior, so I certainly understand the link between the data that you see, or the data that you said everyone is seeing right now, and also understanding the broader contextual factors that drive some of these epidemics. So one of the things we learn in epi are three important things: association, causation, and temporality. So association means these two things are associated. They link, right? Causation means that not only do they link, but one causes the other. And temporality is saying over the course of time, like that's an even stronger argument that this causal relationship is due to time. So for an outside person who is watching this data, who understands that this didn't just pop up in minority communities, that there are deeply rooted inequities based on racist policies that have led to inequities in these communities, which leave their bodies at a fundamental level more prone and more susceptible to disease. And then we see the economy open. Then if we kind of look at time, it does flick up a light bulb above your head and make you wonder, why open the economy now? Will we ever know? Probably not. Will we know all of the factors that were part of the decision-making process for the people at the local level, the state level, or the federal level? Probably not. But we can say that once this data was brought to light, I think, Mark, the observation that you saw is what a lot of people saw, is that the economy was opened. A lot of other people also saw that right after we were gifted with the $1,200 checks that the economy opened. So if you think about time, right, one thing happened and another came right after it. I think that it is not far-fetched for people to draw the conclusion that one might have led to the other. But I don't know that we will ever know, because we're not at these decision-making tables.
Yeah, that's true. We're not at those tables, but we can just speculate on what was going on and things of that nature. I'm just curious, and this is good for everybody. Well, one, how is everybody in their individual settings going on with their lives. So I'm curious as to, like, Seneca, are you quarantined or self-quarantining yourself the same with Andrew? So I'll just start from the bottom up, so I'll go from Seneca on up. So I'm curious as to what people are doing in their own individual lives in terms of how they are handling what we're going through. And then I'm also wanting to hear people's opinions as to how it is being done in their individual states, because we do have people calling from around the country. So I want to know how they feel they are doing in terms of opening up, because I have heard some people being concerned that we might be opening up too soon. So, Seneca, I'll start with you, and then I'll go to Mr. Hacker. So, Seneca, are you self-quarantining? Are you getting any filmmaking done? Are you, and also, how do you feel we're doing here in the state of North Carolina, since that's where you are?
Yes, so I'm in Durham, and no, I'm not self-quarantining. I've been actually more busy than ever. I've been finding myself in between doing my own personal projects that I've been getting contracted quite a bit to get the message out for businesses, and which makes it a little hard logistically because, you know, I've been on set and mask and gloves on, and, you know, hey, it's kind of hard to say, hey, you know, we need social distancing, but yet we have to get this scene with two people, which logistically can be a little bit of an issue, but there's some creative approaches to it. So as a state, I think we're failing in the respect that anytime you have protests going on in Raleigh and people are rushing the state capitol in places like Michigan, there's a disconnect there, and somewhere someone has to be the person that says, hey, enough is enough. And I think this goes up to the federal level. State governors can only do so much when the leadership is flawed from the top down. Someone has to make a decision for better or worse, in my opinion, and it's never a popular decision. And it's very easy for me to say that from the perspective of, yes, I still have income coming in. I can still provide for myself and for my family. In a sense, I empathize with a lot of people because the $1,200 stimulus check was not enough at all, but I think they're getting upset at the wrong things where they should be upset at government on the federal level. The government failed you, in my opinion, and they decided to bail out businesses instead of helping the American people. So, well, back to your original. I know I kind of went on a tangent there, but back to your original. No, I haven't been self-quarantining, and I've just been taking it one day at a time and using all precautions necessary to make sure I'm safe and to continue to make films and just navigate during these times to create content.
Yeah, and Mr. Hacker, you're up there in the New York, which is, everybody knows is the epicenter. So are you still? I know that when I watch Shree, he thinks he's on day 60. So you're probably on day 60 as well of self-quarantining with your lovely wife and everything. So is that what you're doing, and how are you keeping busy? Are you doing a lot of your professor work online? Because I have friends that are professors here at Central as well, North Carolina Central as well as Duke, and some that are even out of state that are professors as well. So I was just wondering, are you able to do all the work that you would do in terms of your professor work, and also how are you maintaining, and how do you feel things are going in New York? We've heard a lot of great praise nationally for what Cuomo is doing, but I was wondering what your take of it is. Mr. Hacker? I don't know if he stepped away on me or what. Well, we'll come back to him. But, Bobby, are you still there?
I am.
Hello? Okay. So how's your take on things? How do you feel that things are going as far as you're concerned?
Oh, I'm staying at home. I've been watching this epidemic or this pandemic since it started and having a lot of discussion with friends from all walks of life, and just not a chance that I am willing to take, given that there is so much we don't know about this particular virus. So coronavirus is not new, but this is a new type of coronavirus. I personally am not going to chance that, and I'm blessed with the work that I have and that my team has, and that we can all work remotely. And I continue to try to support some of the local businesses. I've done a few curbside pickups. I've ordered from local coffee shops and restaurants to try to still keep the economy going here in Durham. But I have no intention of trying to play hokey pokey with science, as we're still trying to figure out the pathology of or the pathophysiology of this virus, and more so just out of respect to, again, the most vulnerable in our community. People think the most vulnerable are only the elderly. They are certainly more